Hello, and welcome to the ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. Over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a listener that I can barely begin to express how much I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you being here. As I know you have a lot of options. As Listen Notes, the podcast platform says, there are about 168.9 million plus podcasts you could choose from. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, as indeed it is just me on the podcast outside, at least for the initial episodes. All substance, no muss, no fuss, no fluff, no fancy or flashy high production inserts or intro, just straight to the key discussion points. A show that will look at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian United States constitutionalist lens, hence, obviously, the ChristiTutionalist Politics title. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and last name is spelled L-E-N-A-R-D, like most pronounce Leonard, but without the O, an author of a very non-traditional but Christian, nonetheless Christian book, co-host of Savaged Unfiltered podcast, and for purposes of this show, most notably a blogger for thelibertybeacon.com, from which most of the content for the show will be derived. These are not going to be long, drawn-out episodes. I just want something short for you to be able to tune into, get the highlights, food for thought. You can then delve deeper into via my online articles and reach your own conclusion. And as Graham Norton would say on his late-night talk show, let's get on with the show! Season 1, Episode 5, titled Theater Lobby for Snacks and Politics, mainly going to discuss and be based on my thelibertybeacon.com piece titled, Let's Go to the Lobby and Get Ourselves Some Snacks and Politics. Not going to do this often, but let me start by singing. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. For those of you old enough to remember that in theater intermission or opening segment, the cartoon hamburger, hot dog, popcorn, things of raisinets dancing across the screen to try to get you to go to the concession stand. I'm wearing my Beyond the Mask Theater Captain shirt. That's right, Beyond the Mask, which came out ages upon ages ago from Burns Family Christian Studios here in Michigan. Since we're going to be talking about movie and politics today, great movie on the premise, like my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, historical fiction, or as I call it, faction, a blend of fact and fiction set in the American Revolution is Beyond the Mask, on the premise of someone having escaped clutches of the law and gets involved in stopping an assassination plot against George Washington. Really good film, greatly recommend it. But mainly today, I wanted to start off talking about films, and my favorite film of all time, The 13th Floor, which was kind of a Matrix film before the Reeves trilogy, now quadology. Who knows if there'll be a fifth, more on that coming. Based on the book Simulacron 3, a sci-fi book from the 60s, from the great director Roland Emmerich, who brought us the likes of Stargate, the Independence Day films, The Day After Tomorrow, Moonfall, of like great blockbuster films. Not to say he hasn't had a couple stinkers here and there. It happens. And looking forward to, hopefully soon, he will be able to release Stargate trilogy of films reboot back at the theaters, but he's been fighting MGM, who has the final yay or nay. They own the trademark and the rights to the Stargate franchise at this point, even the Stargate spin-off TV series. So they're nixing so far for the last decade, potentially even 2 decades. He's been working on rebringing a Stargate trilogy of films back to the theater. But the political aspect of it is that people preferring delusion, a bubble over reality, a desire to escape into a matrix like the 13th floor is. And the 13th floor, in my mind, is far more theoretically possible than the Matrix series of Reeves films, because think of it like this: with modern technology, and me being a former IT guy, and the author of Simulacron 3 would have never known that we got to today. He was a visionary. But think virtual 3D goggles and the SimCity game, where you could put on your 3D goggles and download yourself into your SimCity and interact with the Sims. That's kind of the premise of the 13th floor, a very realistic take on a matrix, in my opinion. But the escapism, the delusion, the bubble, the wanting and preferring another fictional, non-real place to interact in rather than our own reality. And I get that, right? Crime-ridden streets, the destruction going on around us, politically and literally at times in the streets, with Antifa and blackline Marxist groups wandering around, burning down communities. So I can get the notion that someone might want to download themselves into their sim game and interact with them for a while rather than deal with the reality. And other movies we want to talk about are like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. In that film, there's a great line. Rocket says, and this isn't a big spoiler because this is shown in the trailer, most of the trailers. Rocket says of the villain, he wanted perfection, but what he really wanted was that he hated things the way they are now. So that's true of all tyrants, whether it be communist, fascist, socialist, whatever. They all promise some new utopia, but what they really want, they promise perfection, but they just hate things the way they are. And they want to be the one who lords over the imperfection. They promise different, but like the Who sings, meet the old boss, same as the new boss. And also, as my friend Ed Bondarenka of Your American Heritage, Wham Radio, Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., you could go to whamradio.com, check out the Saturday shows, Abolitionist Roundtable in the mornings at 9, Trigger Talk from 11 to 1 with Dick Kupke, 1 to 2 is Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick and Ed, usually co-hosts. Ed Bondarenka is the host of Your American Heritage from 2 to 3. And Ed liked to say about the Marvel films, the political message of Thanos, thinking about that. It really relates today to today's Davos people of the world, the New World Order types. And this is not conspiracy theory. You could go to their own websites and look this stuff up. I mean, they meet in Davos every year. It's not some Dr. Evil hidden volcano lair where the leaders of the world secretly meet. They meet right out in the open now. And some of them do have a depopulation agenda. Do you remember the Georgia Guidestones that someone recently blew up and they had to be dismantled, talking about trying to limit the population of the planet to around 500 million or a billion people at some point. So this isn't fantasy. So Ed, I'd always thought, had a great analogy there on the Thanos and his snapping his fingers and people vanishing throughout the universes to reduce population. You could look at that as a climate hope agenda. We need to depopulate to save the planets or save the universe nonsense. But as in rocket style, they promise perfection, but they just hate things the way they are. They want to be lords over the imperfection. And guess what? You're some of the imperfect people they want to eliminate, as has happened all throughout history. Hitler, Stalin, Lenin, Mao, Che, all over the planet, these left-wing ideologies, and they are left-wing, whether they are communist, fascist, socialist, monarchies, have eliminated their opponents, like we see happening today, not outright murder like Putin using polonium tablets to murder his opposition. And spare me the Saudi Arabia killing Khashoggi. Khashoggi was an Al-Qaeda terrorist sympathizer apologist. He was an enemy of the state of Saudi Arabia, just as America, I'm sorry, hate to break it to you, we assassinate enemies of the state here too. And now under Biden, they've legalized the going after, they've weaponized, I'm sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. They have weaponized, like Obama did, the IRS during his terms. Now the left is weaponizing the DOJ and the FBI and all the other alphabet soup agencies to come after Americans. The mama bears at the school boards demanding their rightful parental rights, and that school boards are supposed to answer to them, not the unconstitutional Department of Education that has to go. It's unconstitutional. Schools and education are a 10th Amendment states' rights and a we the people local rights issue. But back to films in general. We've all seen it. The wokeism in films of late. You see it all over social media when a new film comes out, and the complaints about the wokest agenda going on in all these films, especially from Disney of late, and people boycotting Disney. I want to go back here, though, then to The Matrix, because a lot of people sadly don't recognize this. And at thelibertybeacon.com, I do have an article from back when, The Enemy of My Enemy notion, where I discuss the Matrix film. So the 13th Floor piece, the let's all go to the lobby, get ourselves some snacks and politics, is not the only article I've employed the movie vehicle to discuss politics. Most people don't know that The Matrix 4 is, quote, a trans allegory film. And that's from the creator of the Matrix films himself that made Matrix 4. Think of the character. The character's name is Switch. Switch, as in trans, as in switching, transing genders, if you didn't get that. And there are other hidden wokest messages in Matrix 4, as well as conservative tropes.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
That they try to trot out and accuse us as stereotypical right-wingers in that film. And the reason that is because the original creator and the director for Matrix 4 got into a dust-up with Elon Musk on Twitter. And Twitter, Elon, not Twitter itself, Elon used the red pill meme that so many of us do. And the creator of the Matrix freaks out because he, of course, never intended for that to become blue pill delusional leftist, right pill, right wing reality people as it has become. So to push back, to fight back, he made Matrix 4 a wokest film. And beyond that, I get it. You know, I go to movies a lot. I like going to the movies. I like watching movies. Mindless escapism on occasion is a good thing. It's an important thing to clear our minds on occasion. The problem comes in where we do it far too often and we're permanently trying to escape reality. We have to get off our couch to not just go to the theater, stop watching the ball games, right? Oh, what's on TV? Politics? I can't be involved in politics. I don't have time. I've got a reality show to watch, which really has nothing to do with reality. They're not directly scripted, but they're outlined and guidelined and nudged in certain directions. They're not reality TV, but I have a V Liberty Beacon piece from a while back on the mindless escapism, the title being Breaks and Distractions, Not Just Okay, but Healthy from Time to Time. So I hope you'll check that out. And we should be putting a copy of that link in the show notes for this. But mindless escapism is good. You've got to clear your head on occasion. The problem comes in is when you're like the 13th Floor, constantly escaping into some delusion away from reality to avoid reality and pretend it doesn't affect you. While you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, as the Rush tune says. If you leave things up to others, what the others do puts an imposition on you. You have to sow in order to reap. Otherwise, you let others sow rotten food, we're all then forced to choke down. I recently seen the new Jennifer Lawrence film, No Hard Feelings, just a mindless escapism film. I knew in advance it was like a John Hughes remake of Can't Buy Me Love, for those of you who remember McDreamy Patrick Dempsey when he first got his start. That was one of his early films. But the John Hughes different films, the romantic teen comedies, the No Hard Feelings is kind of a remake of the Can't Buy Me Love. That people seem to reboot the John Hughes genre films every decade to catch the new generations of moviegoers. Another recent one I seen of late was The Flash. I was really surprised at how good that was. I don't watch that TV series, but The Flash was really good. And issues of The Butterfly Effect, for those who remember that 70s show, Ashton Kutcher played in the original The Butterfly Effect. Great film about, yes, if we become intertimental, as I coined the term, because we have interstellar, we have interdimensional. It should be intertimental, in my opinion, not time travelers. Go back. What do we change? What happens? What do we affect that may change things? The Flash movie deals with that, and there's a lot of great cameos. And of course, another of my favorite films trilogy, the Back to the Future trilogy. Anything that deals with intertimental travel, I love to watch. But sometimes distractions are okay and they're needed. I walked out of the Fast X film, Fast 10. Oh my God, 15 minutes out. It's like They should have stopped at Fast 6, left it about the family after Walker's death, left it. And here comes a bad pun. Fast XXX, Fast 30 will be coming right down the road. They won't stop making these movies. Fast XXX, not an X-rated film. 30 as in, how fast can Dom get his walker going? Get it? Walker, Paul Walker? Okay, I know. That's probably in poor taste. Rest in peace, Paul. You were great. Sad you left us way before your time. And another article I have on thelibertybeacon.com is also about needing to keep a sense of humor, which is why movies can be helpful. To keep our sense of humor, to go see an occasional comedy. No matter how serious things get, we need to keep our sense of humor. And with that, I'm 20 minutes in. I'll run down on perhaps some other pieces you may not have known, because I wish I would have started the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast long ago to coincide with my thelibertybeacon.com pieces, because there are now so many past ones. Some will come up during like this episode and future episodes. I'll reference back to. I'll try to remember to include them in the show notes. The first one ever I wrote for The Liberty Beacon was an old before its news article that I had written several years ago about today's federalism versus original intent federalists. Basically, original federalists versus today's fascia federalists, the fasciocrats, the deep state establishment hacks, not the uniparty stuff. There are plenty of good Republicans. I call myself a ChristiTutionalist by choice, a Republican only by necessity. There are a lot of good Republicans, just not enough of us. tinyurl.com/recruit conservatives. See that article. We need to recruit more ChristiTutionalists into the Republican Party, take it back, bring it back to the solid constitutional platform that the Republican Party still has. Yes, fighting the rhinos and the CINOs. Spring is rhino season. The fall is jackass season. You fight the rhinos and the CINOs in the spring and the primary and elect Republicans up and down the ticket in the fall. But yes, fight the rhinos and CINOs as hard as we do the fasciocrats in the spring. Election reforms, common sense protections needed now. School reforms, parental control choice needed now. Can we trust polling results? I go into that. Another one is brace yourself. I'm about to agree with a Democrat, sort of. You really want to read that. The overblown right-wing extremist terrorism narrative. The death of global warming. Again, another repurposed before its news piece I brought over to the Liberty Beacon. The Party of No, which is again about taking back the GOP to the platform from the rhinoism, the establishment hackism. And again, rhinos and CINOs, along with fasciocrats, make up the deep state. It's not a uniparty thing. There are a lot of good Republicans. There are next to no good dumb-ocrats. Those comprise the deep state establishment hacks. We need to get our language correct, because I have a couple The Liberty Beacon pieces on that. The left constantly twisting and warping of language. Look for those. We have to be precise in our words. And the 2022 election, the ugly, only mildly wet red drizzle, time for new GOP leadership piece. I demand my equity as a male to murder for my convenience. Wow, did that one set the internet alight? Yes, if women have this supposed right to murder their child in the womb for convenience, then I want my equity, like the left constantly talks about. Correct? I demand my right to murder for my convenience. Roe v. Wade was based on privacy. Why, therefore, do I not have the right to murder you in the privacy of my basement, chop your body up, and sell off the body parts like Planned Slaughterhood does? Another piece, U.S. Patriot Marine Paul Whelan remains in Russia, which is close to our hearts here in Michigan, since Paul was from Michigan. I don't have a piece on the border guard, Brian Terry, that was murdered by the Fast and Furious Eric Holder Obama guns they let the Mexican cartels have. But that is, of course, an issue close to us, since Brian Terry was originally from Michigan. His family still lives here. Free speech, yelling fire in a theater. Well, we've just had the recent SCOTUS ruling about you cannot compel speech. Well, I spoke about that already. Free speech, yelling fire in a theater. Yelling fire in a theater is a dumb example. It's always been stupid. Stop using it, because fire is either a fact or a fraud. If you incite unrest by yelling fire where it doesn't exist, that's not opinion. That's not free speech. You can be charged with fraud, and you have to defend yourself for that incitement of unrest. As I really, really thought there was a fire. I wasn't just trying to incite a panic. On and on. A fun piece, right? I talked about needing to keep a sense of humor. Biden, the liar in chief. Well, I wrote George Santos for POTUS 2024, a parody. If we're going to go up against Biden, maybe shouldn't we nominate our biggest liar too? And instead of a debate, we have a lie-off. And the best liar is the one that wins. Bumbler-in-chief Biden wears his blinders to the border. Latest wokeism cries of racism, white supremacy, and cultural appropriation. Release the Kraken, IRS agents. 87,000 new IRS agents. You expected less? You think they're going after the rich? What, were you born yesterday? They are here to go after the middle class and the poor who can't afford the expensive lawyers and tax accountants to wiggle out of paying the taxes, to knuckle under, stealing more from the middle class, where the majority of the tax base, the tax revenues into the treasury come from. That's where the money is. You could take all the money from the billionaires and trillionaires in the United States. It would not cover the U.S. budget for 1 year. Not 1 year. That's not where the money lies. Twisting, warping of language, part 1 and part 2. Are there aliens? Not the open border kind, the ET kind. A little bit fun there too, dealing with ETs. The enemy of my enemy notion that I mentioned that deals with the Matrix quadology of film. Crime, criminals, the left strain lacking credibility. The trumped up legal attacks continue. Introducing the latest superhero, Illuma Baby. Again, going back to the pro-life cause. Brace yourself, I'm about to agree with a Democrat sort of part 2, another fun one to read. And on and on and on they go. I'm up to 46 pieces there now. They drop every Saturday, as does the ChristiTutionalist podcast. They will be inexorably linked here going forward. So thank you all for tuning in. Take care. God bless. Please go to thelibertybeacon.com. In the search bar, put Joseph M. Leonard. Again, that's Leonard without an O, L-E-N-A-R-D. I'm joined now with Mary Vaughan of the Taylor Republican Club in Southeast Michigan. We're going to have just a short conversation about club and being a delegate, things like that. Rather than my going into your background, why don't you give us a brief background, including about your church over in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, for anyone that might be tuning in Ontario, Canada. Give us a brief bit about your background outside of becoming Taylor Republican Club president.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM is your conservative flamethrower. Weekdays, Steve Gruber starts things off at 6 a.m. Gruber gives his perspective on the issues of the day. At 9 a.m., Glenn Beck blazes the airwaves with his nationally syndicated program. From noon to 3, it's Dennis Prager. At 3 o'clock, it's Wham's own Thayrone X. On the Edge, Thayrone tells it exactly as he sees it. At 6, it's The Dana Show, your conservative alternative. At 8, don't miss Joe Pags. Weekends are filled with conservative talk as well. Fingers Malloy, Thomas LeDuc, The Abolitionists Roundtable, A Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick, Your American Heritage with Ed Bondarenka, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and Dick Kupke's Trigger Talk. You can even get links to Wham podcasts from Dave, Dick, and of course Thayrone, all from their pages on our website, whamradio.com. Keep it locked on Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan, and whamradio.com anywhere in the world.
I'm a precinct delegate, first of all, and I enjoy doing precinct delegate work. And I am also a church member of the Remington Park Tabernacle in Windsor, Ontario. The actual address is 604 Charles Street, and it's near the Devonshire Mall. I conduct Bible lessons there each week on Sunday morning at 10:30. And we have the Taylor Republican Club, which we're very pleased with here in Taylor, Michigan. And it is for all communities in the Downriver area. It is not just for Taylor. We have all of the communities represented in our membership. And we're very pleased that each month that I have been able, since 1994, to be able to get a speaker each month for our meetings. This is very, very special to all of our membership because we get ideas from so many different candidates and other groups of people, such as human trafficking. And that's a going thing at this time because of the Sound of Freedom movie. And if you haven't seen it, it's a good one to see. But prepare yourself with some Kleenexes. You will need them.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Sound of Freedom in not the episode that you're going to be on, but the weekend after that. I'm planning that. I lost my note. There it is. Saturday, July the 22nd, I'm expecting you will be on Season 1, Episode 5. Season 1, Episode 6 will be a follow-up movies and politics podcast, and I will be mentioning Sound of Freedom in that and in my article that goes with it. But before we go further, so I don't forget, we're going to mention your website, https://tinyurl.com/TRC-MI, which is obviously short for Taylor Republican Club, Michigan. tinyurl.com/TRC-MI. And you mentioned you're a delegate, which is important. I wanted to discuss that with you. And before I say that, though, the Taylor Republican Club is not an establishment Republican club. It is for mostly conservative. It's open to anyone, as you said, but it has mostly been a conservatives club, or as I've come to start to call myself, and obviously you are one too, a ChristiTutionalist, short for Christian Constitutionalist. So that is the main focus of the club. We call out liberals, whether they be in the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. We don't play partisan politics. We are about principles not personalities, right? And getting the Republican Party back to the platform. And you mentioned you're a delegate. And I wanted you to go ahead and say the importance of being a delegate, because it doesn't do any good to scream at the cheerleaders, the coaches, the players, the water boy. You got to suit up and get on the field to affect the game, right? And that's being a delegate.
Being a delegate involves your activity in the community. You must, from time to time, deliver literature for different candidates. The other reason for being a delegate is so that you can persuade people to get to the polls and vote, and get people's ideas as to why they are not voting or why they would like something else to happen. And you give them the information about the candidates that you know about and the reason that they're running on the Republican ticket.
Right. Well, it's important. Everybody's level of involvement will, of course, be different. I'm older now. I have a heart valve issue, so I can't do the door-to-door thing. It's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, to reach more people and outside of Michigan, even outside of the United States, globally, to reach everyone with a ChristiTutionalist message about freedoms and our rights. And as Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it, which means you have to sow, right? You reap what you sow. If you don't sow anything, somebody else can sow rotten fruit that we're stuck dealing with, right?
Yes.
So another thing about being a delegate, then it is easier. Republican committee meetings are generally open under the Opens Meetings Act. You can go, but as a delegate, you can go to the county convention and get yourself on a committee. And being on a committee, you then help recruit candidates. So if you're upset with the quality of candidates we have in the spring to vote for in the primary, guess what? Get off your butt, become a delegate. You then help get better candidates so that we have a better candidate in the spring, which means we have a better candidate in the fall to vote for, rather than, as some people, I get tired of hearing people say, oh, I held my nose and voted for the Republican. Well, even a rhino, I'm going to use that term as much as it upsets some people, but even a Mitt Romney, as I call him, or a Lisa Murkowski, all right, as bad as they are still better than the best Democrat, like Joe Manchin, who has got a lot of people bamboozled. You look at Joe Manchin, he talks a good game, but at the end of the day, he's 99.9% Biden, Pelosi, Schumer vote.
That's correct.
Even a Murkowski is better than a Manchin because it counts for control of the body. If we would have got Herschel Walker elected in Georgia this last term, we would have still had a split Senate and power sharing, as opposed to Chuck Schumer having full control of the Senate right now. So please, we got to stop with that. I'm holding my nose. Yeah, if you got to hold your nose in the fall, you've got to vote for the Republicans. As the saying goes, spring is rhino season. Fall is jackass season, right? You vote for the best candidate in the spring in the primary, and then you vote straight GOP in the fall. And yeah, some bad ones get in, but it's still better than Pelosi, better than Schumer, better than AOC, for God's sake. I mean, how have some people not figured this out? But yeah, thank you for mentioning about being a delegate. The other thing is you could go to state convention, and if you've got the time and money, you could potentially become an elector and go to the national convention. Weren't you an elector one time?
Yes, I was. I voted for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and I went to Minneapolis. It was a very, very lovely trip, and it was worth every penny that I spent to get there. The thrill of being an elector is unbelievable.
Oh, I
And
can
usually
imagine.
you only get to do that once in a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. And again, let me make clear though for people watching, to become a delegate is free. You just have
Right.
to sign an affidavit to get your name in your precinct on the ballot. And most precincts have only one delegate, some none, some two, and usually three or more are allowed. So if you get on the ballot, you vote for yourself, you usually become a delegate, unless if your precinct happens to be crowded with several that already exist. But we've got to fill these delegate slots, and you do not have to plan on spending thousands of dollars going to a national convention. You don't have to go that far. You can
No.
stay involved locally, but it's important to be a delegate, because without being a delegate, you've got no vote. You've got no say in the Republican Party. I'm sorry, Republican Party, Democrat Party, Reform Party, Libertarian Party, U.S. taxpayer, they are all under the law a private club. Obviously, the fall elections are open to everybody, but in a primary, the party gets to decide its own rules. And for the only way for you to have a say is to come out of those cheap seats, put on the equipment, which is being a delegate, and getting on the field to have a say to affect the outcome of the game. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for joining me today, Mary. I appreciate that. We went kind of longer than I thought we would even, but I didn't know what rabbit holes we would go down. And I know there are certainly other clubs all across the United States that do these things too. And we've got to get more of them doing that. And one thing you mentioned, we didn't say when the meetings are, and it's except what months for the picnic and for Christmas.
We will start our readings in September. The first will be the 8th, and we will have a meeting every month until next April, which will be 2024. Our Christmas dinner will be at the Stitz Post in Dearborn Heights, and it's a lovely place with very good food. I always use the price around $20 or $22 because everyone in my club and the downriver area can afford that price.
Right.
And you won't be disappointed in the food.
Right. You're not looking to make money off the Christmas party like a lot of clubs do. And of course, the local congressional district needs to raise funds for candidates. Well, TRC does too, but they use that as a fundraiser, whereas you don't. You use it as a ChristiTutionalist type gathering of like minds. And again, tinyurl.com/TRC-MI. You could also find, using the Wayback Machine, the old 12 CDRC website. It's no longer because of redistricting. There's a new 12th district. But if you go to the old 12 CDRC website using the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, there's a clubs link which lists a bunch of clubs in Michigan. And if you're not in Michigan, which of course a lot of people watching won't even be in the United States, find a club of any kind, conservative, Christitutionalist, whatever, near you. DuckDuckGo, Jibberoo, or Free Spoke search. Don't use Google. Use DuckDuckGo. Find a good club near you to become a member of. All right. Thanks, Mary. Have a great night. Thank you for having tuned into ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. And you can obviously learn more about the very non-traditional or fluffy style Christian book, but a Christian book nonetheless. Also, please tune in to Savage Unfiltered Podcast, of which I am a co-host, and be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. In addition to seeing the corresponding thelibertybeacon.com piece referenced in any episode of ChristiTutionalist podcast, see to the show transcript on podcast platforms that provide access to it, like Buzzsprout, at tinyurl.com/ChristiTutionalist for additional bonus material there in the transcript. Thank you. Take care. God bless.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.